of targeted impact, helping membership organizations thrive by Wild Apricot. As you're probably aware, this is our bi-weekly show. We invite on a thought leader, industry insider, total expert on all those things that make a really great organization. This week, I'm incredibly excited that we have Robbie Kellman Baxter here. Robbie, as you guys probably figured out by the conversation we just had, is an expert in customer success and all things subscription. I actually am technically right now on paternity leave, but I carved out an hour to be here with Robbie today because I did not want to miss this chat. So I'm really, really excited. I'm sure everyone else is too. So Robbie, officially welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. And what a big honor to be able to tear you away from your adorable baby.
He is adorable, but he is sleeping, so I don't feel too bad. But if you hear a cry in the background, it means I did not close the door enough, but I think we're going to be okay for the next hour. Okay, Robbie, let's talk just a little bit about you to kind of set the level for everyone. So you have a 20-year strategic consulting career where you worked with hundreds of organizations from hot growth startups in Silicon Valley, some of the biggest associations in the United States, to brands that are recognized the world over. So Netflix, everyone knows Netflix. You've worked with Netflix, the NBA, and Electronic Arts, so video games. So I'm very excited about that. So that's pretty cool. You're the author of 2 books, The Membership Economy and The Forever Transaction. And we have a special announcement about the Forever Transaction. We're actually giving away 20 copies of that today to people who ask questions. So there we go, there's the book. So make sure to ask your questions, ask as many as you can. More questions you ask, more entries you get, and we will contact the winners at the end of the show, or well, after the end of the show. We can't do it the very second, but you guys get what I mean, right? Okay, so with credentials like that, not surprising, you give a lot of keynote talking, or you do a lot of keynote talking events. You talked for, oh man, okay, I'm gonna have to read a list: AICPA, ASAE, AEM, AOCS, and CESSE. Those are
Alphabet
all very,
soup.
yeah, I was about to say we could get through the entire alphabet with the organizations you've keynoted for, so that's super cool. And then of course, sometimes we're going to come across your name in the likes of the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Consumer Reports, and a magazine I absolutely love reading, and a subscription, HBR. So clearly you know what you're talking about, and people like to hear from you, so that's great. It means we're going to have a good show.
Yeah, we're going to have a great time.
Absolutely. Okay, Robbie, that's the stuff that actually stood out to me from your amazing resume that I just want to share with everyone. Is there anything else that people should be aware of that you'd like them to know before we kind of get to the question part of this show?
No, I think you did a great job.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. All right, everyone. So before we get to the questions, because this is a Q&A show, just a few really simple guidelines. First, if you want to ask a question, it's super simple. We have that chat box, drop it in there, and the team here at Wild Apricot will pull those questions, and they'll pass it on to me, and I'm just a mouthpiece. I'm going to pass those on to Robbie, and you'll get to ask her a question directly through me. If you don't want to use the GoToWebinar, you're a Twitter person, that's totally cool. You can just use hashtag targeted impact. We'll pick that up and pass it over to Robbie as well. One little caveat, we get a lot of questions every episode. So regrettably, we may not get, or regrettably, not may, we definitely won't get to every single one. So if you ask a question, we don't get to it, we're sorry about that. We're going to try our best. Often we'll kind of answer them in follow-up blogs and things like that. So just give it your best shot. Hopefully we'll get to you. And if not, keep your eye on the Wild Apricot blog. We'll hopefully get to it there. So with that, we are ready to go and going to ask some questions. So question 1, before we actually answer questions, let me ask the audience a question, because we're talking about subscriptions. How many subscriptions do you actually think you have? So your options are going to be 0, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, or 10 plus. Robbie, as the expert, any guesses on which ones are going to show up or what's going to come up on top?
I think people are going to end up around 7 to 9, but I think that towards the end of this discussion, they're going to realize that their number is closer to 10 to 15.
Wow. Okay. I should have had bigger buckets or bigger ranges.
They're not, but in the beginning, people think, oh, I have 5. And then they're going to be like, oh, yeah, and that one. And oh, yeah, all the newspapers. And oh, yeah, all the things I use for work. And so the numbers, they add up.
Okay. All right. I think we are close. I'm just going to pull up those results super, super quick. Bear with me for 2 seconds. Robbie, you're absolutely correct in the 7 to 9 range. Maybe we tip the scales a little bit by giving the shout out, but yeah, 43% of people in that 7 to 9 range. So definitely a lot of subscriptions are going on. Okay, so with that, let's look at some actual questions from people about subscription or customer success, really your areas of expertise. So question number one. Okay, this is a good one. Robbie, what are subscription models? How do they work? And why do you think they're so powerful? Okay, so this is like 3 questions.
Okay. What are subscription? So first question, what are subscription models?
What
So
are subscription models? Like,
the way I think about it, it's any organization, a subscription is a payment tactic. It is a way to charge for value. It by itself is not a strategy. It's a pricing decision. And a subscription model, or I call it a membership mindset, justifies subscription pricing. If you have a long-term offering, you provide long-term value for people, you solve a problem or help them achieve a goal, you build greater engagement and loyalty, and you can justify using subscription pricing. You might not choose to do that, but it's a lot easier to charge subscription rates if you're offering what I call a forever promise. If you have a long-term goal and you're aligning all the value you create around that goal, then you can enjoy subscription pricing. Did I get all 3 questions?
I think so, yeah. I mean, you definitely didn't shout out each one individually, but I think as a whole, that definitely answers the question. So that's a great answer, Robbie. Thank you. Um, yeah, it's tough when you get 3 questions to start.
Yeah, yeah.
Julie did not hold back. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Cool. So, okay, this is a good one because we're talking about the membership world. A big part of the membership world is the non-for-profit space.
Yeah.
So Greg is curious, do you think subscription works for the non-for-profit world?
Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways, it actually could work better than a lot of other businesses because nonprofits are generally mission driven. They already are very close to having a forever promise. The difference between a mission and a forever promise is that a mission is what the organization seeks to do, the change they seek to do in the world, and the promise is the promise they're making to the people they serve. So in a lot of cases for nonprofits, it's about your donors, or it's about your beneficiaries. And so what you say is you take a step back and say, I'm a museum. What is my forever promise to the people who come to my museum? It's you're going to feel a connection to whatever it is, art or science or history. Maybe it's about your families. You're going to raise kids who are curious and engaged in the world. Um, and then you think about what does that membership look like that would deliver on that promise to the customers. It might be different than, our museum is here to, to be a collection or a living artifact of our history. But the promise to the people who come to the museum or the promise to the people that are members is actually a little bit different.
Okay.
I just interviewed I launched a podcast not too long ago called Subscription Stories, and last week's guest was MZ Wallace, who is the Senior VP of Subscription for a nonprofit called Charity Water. And she comes from, big brands, New York Times, Glossier, Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's company, and she's bringing those subscription and membership practices from big corporate brands into the world of nonprofits.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, Charity Waters is an organization that definitely have had my eyes on. I think I saw their founder speak at Inbound a couple years back. An
Yeah,
amazing
Scott.
story and just amazing how they are kind of tackling some of the biggest, how would I put it, deterrents that people have to giving to an organization. So I'm gonna have to check out that podcast now. So thanks for the shout out, Robbie.
Yeah, great.
Cool. So we have a really interesting one from Wayne. So Wayne wants to start a seed subscription service for farmers and then
Mhm.
follows up with, what do you recommend as the basics of a subscription? So what are the basics of a subscription? So general, and then if Wayne wants to do stuff for farmers and seeds, anything particular that you can think of there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the basics of a subscription, if you're just getting started with a subscription, is you want to start not with your products, the seeds, but with your customer, the farmers. Which farmers? Like even when you say that, I'm thinking, Wayne, are you talking about like big, large scale professional farmers whose livelihood depends on it? Or are you talking about kind of what they call the gentleman farmers and gentlewoman farmers who are doing it more as a hobby or in retirement? Or are you talking about, all of us that have planted victory gardens for the first time during this COVID period? And what is the promise you're making to that group? So you could already imagine that the promise you'd make to somebody who does this professionally is going to be very different than somebody who does this in a more amateur style. And you want to really focus on what is that promise. So you might say, well, we're providing, like what Amazon does, a subscribe and save. We give you access to a range of seeds at a low price in volume discount every month, the right seeds that you need. That's really different than saying we give you a variety of heirloom seeds for your weekend home. So what I would advise you to do is get really clear on who you're serving and what's the promise you're making. And it's not about seeds. One of the biggest challenges a lot of organizations have is they fall in love with their own products. And this is true of nonprofits. This is true of membership associations. You start with this big vision, and then you immediately go to training, or you immediately go to seeds. And that's not that's a starting point. But what you really want to go is, how do I solve this person's problem or help them achieve their goal in the best way that I possibly can with my skills and my resources? And that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, that sounds like a good question that every business should be starting with, whether or not you have subscription or not. But yeah, some great advice there. Okay, so this is an interesting one and very timely given the days we are in with COVID. Catherine is curious because she has a small nonprofit and a lot of their revenue used to come from workshops. And so their organization is considering adding webinar workshops as a subscription to generate income during these days. What advice do you have for someone who's maybe making that transition from, I guess, a traditional old school workshop to now a digital workshop and going to subscription from, I guess, pay upfront kind of model?
Yeah. So this is a great question. So, and it follows up really well on the prior question. You're not in, as a nonprofit, I'm guessing you're not in the workshop business. You're in the helping a certain group of people achieve their goal business. And the workshop happens to be the way you have recently been packaging your value. As an organization, you want to stay kind of light on your feet so that you can be agile in always being able to repackage your value in a way that best meets your clients' or customers' needs, your members' needs. So right now you're kind of being forced to do it because of COVID, where workshops just aren't an option. As you move to digital, I would encourage you not to think of it as I'm moving my workshops to digital. Say, I'm looking for a way to use my digital assets to deliver on our promise to our members. And so think about not just what you're giving up. You don't want to just take your workshop and put it online. You want to think about, what else can I layer in that will help them achieve their goals? Because while you're losing some things from not having the in-person bit, you're gaining some things in terms of reach. You can reach people that are more geographically distributed. They're going to be able to connect and communicate in different ways. Some people don't like to be in a room full of strangers, but they're more comfortable sharing their thoughts through digital chat. And you can record and play it back later. You can access a much broader range of speakers and content providers. So there's a lot that you have to play with. And I would really focus on maximizing the value you can provide, and then you can put a fair price tag on it. What I've seen in terms of like my own speaking and events that I do, at the beginning of COVID, people said, oh, well, when you move to digital, you're going to have to, cut your price down by 70%. That's not necessarily true. If you're still providing the same kind of outcomes and the same kind of value, you'll still be able to justify the same kind of revenue.
Wow, that's a great answer there, Robbie. I really like that one. I also liked the idea of how much you can add on in a digital space. I think last March we were all kind of sounding alarm bells, really worried, like, oh no, what am I going to do now? And I was like, actually, there's a lot you can do. In some ways, I think we've swung the pendulum into that virtual space because we've been forced, but we may not swing back to the same place we were before. A lot of the learnings, a lot of the advantages of digital are going to still be there afterwards, and so I think a lot of organizations are going to stay in this space in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of forcing us. I mean, the better organizations are using this as an opportunity to take a step back and go back to your forever promise and say, if I were starting today and I wasn't burdened by my training centers and my workshops, how would I deliver this value? And you might say, oh, I'd record classes. I'd set up a digital community. I'd facilitate conversations. What if you had a 5-minute conversation every single morning at 8 o'clock? And all of your members could join in. It was live. Everybody, you'd share a problem of the day. Everybody would try to help one member, and then off you'd all go to your days. Um, those kind of things you can't do in person, but you can do them digitally. So really, I encourage you to go back to your promise and say, if we were starting today, what is the best way that we can help our members achieve their goals?
That's great. Okay, so I want to keep going. We have a lot of questions coming in. This one is really neat. Stacy says, do you define subscription interchangeably with membership? So
Yeah.
what's the difference?
So first of all, when I was writing my first book, the membership economy, this was like the question that plagued me because I really wanted to get crisp on that. And what I realized for myself is that membership for me, there's sort of two. First of all, when you're talking to associations, there's membership with a capital M and membership with a lowercase m. One of them is the concept of a membership mindset. How do you treat the people you serve? Do you expect to see them coming back? I sort of joke, do they have you on speed dial? If they had a problem, would they call you to complain? Do they feel like they belong? And then there's a separate thing, which is your membership offering. So a lot of organizations in the association space have a product that they call membership that you don't have to buy. Um, and membership might come with it's a bundle of benefits, right? So you get maybe some, a certain number of training classes, you get maybe a discount for the conference, you get 3 phone calls, whatever. And that's a product. So that's membership. Membership for me is really about the mindset. We treat our customers like members. We're more focused on recurring revenue than one-time revenue. We're thinking about lifetime value rather than thinking about transaction size. Subscription, as I said earlier, is a pricing decision. It is a method of capturing value for services that is periodic and ongoing and automatic.
That's great. Thanks for clarifying there, Robbie. Kind of piling on what makes a membership, I think, especially with a lot of the associations and non-for-profits we're going to be talking about, there's that mission piece to it, which is such a huge part of the story as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Members have an ongoing goal. I
Yep.
mean, that's the whole point of membership. They have an ongoing goal and they have an ongoing relationship with the organization. Um, there's a couple of companies that I've worked with. One example is a Haggerty Insurance up in Traverse City, Michigan. They are an insurance company and they insure classic cars. And what they've noticed is that their insurance customers referred to themselves as members because Haggerty has a long history with classic cars. They host a lot of events. They invite their insurance customers to come up and see their garage up in Traverse City. Um, People call them when they have a problem with their car, not an insurance problem, but like a question, like, should I get a Mustang or a Barracuda, and what do you recommend? And they noticed that so many people would come up to them at events that they were sponsoring and say, hey, Haggerty, I'm a member of Haggerty. And they said there's something about that mindset that they feel a sense of belonging. They feel like Haggerty is in their corner and helping them achieve their goal, which is not about insuring their car. It's about getting the most enjoyment out of a classic car lifestyle, being a fan of classic cars. I want to enjoy that. One of the ways I enjoy that is by buying one at some point in my life and making sure that that car is risk protected. But that's just a small piece of it. What I'm really trying to do is enjoy the car and enjoy hanging out with other people who love cars as much as I do.
Yeah, that's wow. If I were at Haggerty, I'd be celebrating when you shared that information with them. I'd just be popping champagne.
Yeah, well,
It's a good problem to have.
they ended up launching a membership that was completely separate from the insurance because what they realized
Oh,
was if you're a car guy, right? It probably starts in your early adolescence where you're like, I love cars and you know what they all are and you love them and you have pictures on your walls and you stop people when you see them like, is that your car? And what kind of engine do you have? And then, maybe you have an old beat up car that you try to, fix in your garage at home. And then you kind of grow up and you get serious and you get your minivan, your sedan, and you're thinking, one day I'm going to have an awesome classic car. And then maybe you finally buy one in your 50s. But you're a classic car lover from the time you're 12. And then you have your car, and then maybe you're not able to drive anymore. It's very sad but true. But you still want to be in the community. You still want to go to the events. So they created a membership that doesn't require car ownership or insurance.
that is super cool. As someone who in the last 6 months traded a sports car for a family sedan, you have to look at a Haggerty membership. So thanks
Yeah,
for
yeah, great.
sharing. Cool. Okay. Next question. Um, Darlene is curious about what you feel are the biggest mistakes that happen when people create memberships,
Um, the biggest mistakes when you create
or maybe the
memberships.
biggest pitfalls is a better way of
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, so in this book, the Forever Transaction, I really tried to break out those pitfalls by where you are in your member maturity. So for memberships that are just starting out, if you're trying to figure out your membership, I think that the biggest issue is, well, there's a couple, not being focused enough on who you serve. So back to the Wayne's farming example, like, are you doing farming for, amateurs or experts, for professionals, for big scale, small scale, what market, what region, what weather? Um, be really focused on who you serve with your membership and on what your promise is to them. And then don't invest in turning on your loudspeaker, that is starting your big marketing efforts, until you're confident that once somebody joins, they're going to stay for a while. So master retention first before you invest in the top of the funnel. As you go later into the process and become more sophisticated in the scaling phase, I think the biggest issue is making sure that everyone in the organization has a member mindset and that you're using technology properly to support your best practices. And then the last stage of that I kind of outlined in the book, there's, start, launch, and then scale, which is the second phase. The last phase is lead. And this is for a lot of mature nonprofits, membership organizations, professional societies that already have an active membership offering. And those organizations, I think, tend to grow, they basically age alongside their members. So, maybe at some point 50 years ago when you started, your your offering really aligned well with your forever promise, so people joined. And those people stayed over time. But over time, your offering didn't evolve with the landscape. So while your members stayed because they weren't considering alternatives, that's kind of the power of membership is I take off my consumer hat, I put on a member hat, and I stop looking for other ways to solve this problem or achieve this goal. But for somebody who's still wearing their consumer hat, they look at your offering and they're like, that's not the best way to solve my problem, right? One example of that is newspapers, where, you know, a newspaper's forever promise in most cases is something like to help people understand the world around them so they can make better and more confident decisions, right? 50 years ago, the best way to do that is by reading the newspaper that was delivered to your home or to your newsstand once a day. Now we can get much more current news 24/7 tweeted to us, right? Or through all sorts of digital platforms or brother, and we don't have to pay for it in many cases because many organizations give away news, like Google and Facebook give away news as a means of building engagement. So if you're looking with fresh eyes at the value proposition of a newspaper subscription, it might not look as good as some of the other ways of that you might have to understand the world around you and make better decisions. So those are some of the problems that happen depending on where you are in your membership maturity.
Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned launch scale lead. Or sorry,
Hmm.
wait,
Yeah,
did
that's right.
I get that right? Okay, perfect. And I would say maybe there's even a little bit before that if you're not even in the subscription space, right?
Hmm.
You're just trying to learn. So let's define launch scale lead, and then we can maybe pull the audience on where they think their organization is. So what are the key defining characteristics of someone who's in the launch phase, the lead phase, and the scale phase?
Okay, so the launch phase is you you are not confident that that somebody that you can attract, engage, and retain somebody who fits your ideal member profile. So the kind of test that I always have is if you were sitting on an airplane next to somebody that fit your definition of an ideal member, that they didn't know anything about you, and you had 45 minutes as a leader in your organization to tell them about your model and see if you could get them to A, sign up, and B, that you had a high confidence level that they would both stay for a long time and be really grateful that they met you on the airplane, really happy to be a member and be happy to be paying you, then you're ready to move to the scaling phase. So the kind of guiding line is, do you have product market fit? Do you know that somebody will join in a membership model and a subscription model? It's not enough to have that acquisition mastered where you know you can get them to join. You also have to have confidence that they're going to stay and be happy. Um, so that's kind of the difference. So that's what launch is have you gotten to that point? And that's where you're defining your forever promise, you're defining your best member, and you're working on product market fit. The second phase, the scale phase, is if you have if everything is automated and systemic. The first phase is usually, the team is usually like creators, innovators, entrepreneurs, think outside the box, color outside the lines kinds of people, quite strategic. The second phase is all about the operators, having operational efficiency, figuring out business processes. Are you doing things in an efficient and scalable way? And then and that's about culture, that's about tech, that's about metrics. The last phase, um, which is the lead phase, is you have a business at scale. The way that you run your organization is the way that it looks like a membership organization. You are focused on the right metrics. You've got your community, you've got your subscription pricing, what have you. Um, and your challenges are really, how do we keep it fresh and relevant? Because a big part of a membership is you're always improving it just enough so that it stays great and relevant, but not so much that you make your members like stop and say, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. Do I really want this?
Okay, now we have very, very detailed definitions. So I think it's a good
Sorry.
time. It's a good time for a poll. So if we can get that poll up on screen. All right. So I called out researching, but I feel like launch even includes that now. So launch, scale, or lead using Robbie's definitions. Where is your organization today when it comes to subscription models? Still figuring it out? You're trying to make it a process that everyone can kind of buy into, or are you at that lead phase where you are now kind of proliferating that and making it a little bit better to keep your members sticking around? So launch, scale, or lead, or my incorrect researching point.
No, it's great.
Um, Robbie, any guesses what's going to come out up ahead or out ahead?
Um, it's hard to know. I mean, I think a lot of associations and nonprofits are probably going to be in group three, that they've been thinking about this and doing this for a long time, and they're wondering why it's not working as well as it used to work.
Okay.
But we'll see. Let's see.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, well, interesting. A lot of people felt they, I guess maybe because I used the caveat when it comes to subscription. So a lot of people are in that research phase. They're not there yet. They're not even ready to bring it on board. They're still trying to figure it out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we had 27% people in that launch phase. So as you described, 21% scaling and 20% lead. So a pretty nice even distribution of the launch scale lead.
Nice.
Yeah, so I guess there's a little bit of for everyone here today. So that's a good thing. If we had
Yeah.
100% in the lead, I'd be a little worried. Okay, moving on. Well, first off, thank you everyone for your answers. I appreciate that. But let's get back to your questions. Okay, so this is a long question. Mark says, we're not a membership association, then puts in brackets yet, but we are a dependent on a community of customers who buy standalone events and services from us. What are the key lessons learned from similar conversions to subscription models? So any key learnings from people moving from one-time transactions to subscriptions, Robbie, that Mark could benefit from?
Yeah, yeah. So you have a lot of data because you know your customers and you know what they buy and you know who they are. And at this point, what I would do is say, what what do you know about the journey your best customers are on? And what is it that brings them to you? What are the events that bring them to you? And can you start to map that out? So this is not about, oh, they come to us and they come to us and they come to us. It's not about your touch points. It's about their journey. So if you're in the business of, let's say, learning how to be a better salesperson, and so I might come to sales conferences and I might occasionally sign up for a sales training, you might say, well, the journey of a salesperson is first they decide they want to be in sales and it's really hard to get that first job. And so they often come to us for certification. And then they want to get promoted. So they come to us to learn management skills. And then they come to us periodically when they have a really hard question about something that they're not doing well. Then you say, okay, how do we create a membership that allows us to help create a glide path for them to grow their career? How do we optimize this? Like if we know where they're going, we can tell them the best way to get there because we're becoming experts because we see so many salespeople. So that's what I'd advise you to do is say, what's that path and how can we optimize our offering to be like sign up once and we'll take care of getting you there.
Very cool. I'm a little curious because I know you coined the term membership economy. Did you also coin the term glide path? Because I love it and I haven't heard it used
Oh,
before.
no, I didn't. I wish I could take credit for it.
Okay, well, I'm going to pretend you did. And every time I use it from now on, I'll be like, oh, yeah, I learned that from Robbie. It was a really good term.
Yeah, oh, good.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a best practices question. So I think it's the first best practice question we have from Christina. She would say, how often should you contact your subscribers?
Yeah, it's a good question. So people ask this all the time. And of course, I'm a consultant, so I bet you can guess what my answer is.
Depends.
Depends. Yeah. Um, but here's what I would say. It is surprising and shocking how much appetite people have for valuable content and valuable help. If you have an online community and really interesting conversations are going on, I probably want to hear about them in real time all day long. I might be checking in, like as many of us do, into Facebook, 12 times a day, or my Mighty Networks account, or my whatever, um, multiple times a day. If what's the guy's name, John Lee Dumas, who has a podcast, what does he call it, podcast paradise, podcasters paradise. He started his podcast originally because he needed an entrepreneur's podcast and he wanted something that was every day. He wanted a shot of adrenaline every single day, and there was nothing that was that frequent. He wanted more frequent content. Financial Times and some of the other major newspapers have moved to a newsletter model where they send. So here's the thing: a newsletter can be full of marketing stuff, or it can actually be news, right? Stuff that's actually useful. And if it's actually useful, people will take 2 newsletters a day. So the question is really how much value can you provide, and what is the value that your organization provides, and how frequently do people really need it? Does that answer the question? I
Yeah,
didn't
I
give a
think
really
so.
good I didn't give a specific number.
I don't think there ever is a specific number. It's entirely based on, well, what you just said, and also, what your audience is showing you through the data, right? You can
Yeah.
experiment a little bit there too, right? If you're already doing 2 touches, maybe go to 3, go to 4, see what happens. If your unsubscribe rate, I mean, I'm thinking email, but if your unsubscribe rate doesn't go down, or you get some nasty comments on your Facebook page, you're probably doing something that people are appreciating.
Yeah, it's really okay to have unsubscribes. Um, it's really good for your list hygiene. So, if people are saying I'm getting too many messages, even if that's the message you're getting, it might be I'm getting too many messages and they're not relevant to me because there isn't any one number of messages that is too much if it's valuable.
That is absolutely true. So thank you for pointing that one out, Robbie. Ron, this is interesting. So Ron has built a non-profit organization through a web forum, and his forum has over 38,000 members.
Way to go.
I know that's a great
That's amazing.
community.
Yeah.
Um, Now the forum is free, and he's thinking about how can he build a subscription that would be in the yearly subscription, something not too expensive, $15 to $20. So how would he do that? And how could he convert the largest number of people to paying subscribers? I actually
Yeah.
have some ideas, but I want to hear you first, Robbie.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I definitely want to hear what you have to think, what you have to say. So the first question I would ask is, are you sure that you want to have a large number of people subscribe for a small amount versus a small number of people subscribe for a large amount? Um, for me, it comes back to segmentation. So I would be looking carefully at that 38,000 people and try to think about, you know, what brought them to the forum, what makes them engaged, and what is the problem I'm solving or the goal I'm helping them achieve, and what would it look like if I provided them more value? A good question to imagine is, if there, sometimes people say, I don't know why this company doesn't provide this because I would gladly pay for it, and it seems like they should be able to do that really easily, right? I don't know why my car repairman doesn't, do pickup and drop off because obviously I don't have a car when I leave my car at his shop, um, right? And that's how you kind of pull on what the customer journey is. My journey of getting my car replaced, it's really getting my car repaired in the most efficient way possible. And so it's not just about the repair, it's about the getting me there and getting me home. So for Ron, I would say, look at those different segments, and there might be, you might say, well, look, 75% of them all come for the same reason. And so it's easy to come up with an offering for all of them. Or you might say, wow, there's only 10% that are really engaged and wanting more. I would be looking at the people, usually the easiest place to find them is the people that are pushing up against the limits of what your forum provides. They're the ones that are saying, how come you don't provide this? And how come you don't provide that? And we should have a conference, and we should have a mastermind, and I would like to talk to you about some ideas. I'd like a one-on-one. That's often where you get the ideas of what paid memberships to add on top of your freemium offering. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I was going to say, an annual membership at $20. I mean, that's not a big expense, but if you were to tell someone like, you know, $2 a month, less than half the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, that may be even easier to swallow. So that's one idea I had. So any thoughts on that one? Is it better to break it up small or big memberships once a
Yeah,
year,
well,
Robbie?
I mean, you bring up a great question. So talking about pricing, one of the questions that we get all the time is annual versus monthly pricing. And monthly pricing is easier to join because it seems, like you said, you can compare it to something like it's less than a cup of coffee, it's less than you pay for the bus token.
Yep.
And so it's easier to get people to join, and retention is better on a month-to-month basis, of course. When you have an annual number, you're like, oh, every March, I'm like, what was this $25 thing that I don't remember? Oh, I guess I'll cancel. So you'll see a much larger churn at that period, but usually the churn for the annual is less than the collected cost of the monthly. Um, the times when annual works well is when the person is imagined, like the best customer should stay for a lifetime. So for example, like something like LinkedIn, where you think, well, if you're going to join, you need it for your whole life because it's about your career, versus something where people might say, oh, I might use it for a while and then stop using it. So that's one thing. And then also freemium versus paid. Uh, if you're offering this forum for 38,000 people for free, there should be a way that there's value to your paying subscribers in all the free people being there. What's the value to them? Why would you give it away for free to other people?
That's a great point. Yeah, definitely. I feel like part of that, there's a bit of a flavor of also, letting people pay what they want, right? If there's models where you have, maybe it's a $20 membership, but you're welcome to pay more. And a lot of people who really, really love something like a forum or a website or a podcast will pay, multiples more just to say like, yeah, I really, really like what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So sometimes, yeah, in the nonprofit world for sure, a lot of times people will pay to be supporters and they will pay a subscription fee as supporters. And the great thing to do there is start by asking them for their support to support what you're doing, but then think about how can you reinforce the wisdom of their decision and get them to feel more engaged uh, after they've made that contribution.
Awesome. That's so much good advice in that one answer, Robbie. So thank you for that. Um, all right, it is 3:45, so we're going to be able to get through maybe three more questions, four more questions. So let's press forward. Anita is curious about. Oh, this is interesting. So if you have lapsed members, how do you re-engage them? What are your thoughts there? Maybe these people are still paying a subscription, but they're just not engaging with the content.
Yeah, so there's sort of two ways of defining a lapse member. One of them is, what they call the zombie members, like who are still paying but aren't using your services. Netflix recently kind of took the high road and said if you've been a subscriber for a year or more but not logged in, we'll cancel your subscription automatically for you. With the logic being they don't want to get money from people who aren't getting value. And so that's kind of like the high road, the standard bearer. In terms of people who have gone cold but are paying, it's really important that first of all you track engagement. Engagement is a leading metric for retention. Engagement is recency, frequency, and depth or breadth of usage. So when was the last time they did something with you? How often did they do something with you? And when they do something with you, how long did they spend? How many of your features or what breadth of features do they use? Track those things so that when you see those numbers not be where they should be, that you can have an intervention, whether that's an email or a phone call or something that's built right into your software product. You want to get them back as soon as possible, as soon as you notice it, and not wait until the next renewal. So that's for lapse members. For people who've actually canceled, um, you want to, you want to understand the reasons. So the first best practice is you want to track reasons for cancellation and you want to get the true answer. So just like in a breakup, people don't like to tell you the real reason that they left, right? It's not me or it's not you, it's me. Um, you have a great membership offering. I'm just a jerk that doesn't use your great value, right? But then what that really is saying is, I don't find value in the things that you give me. So that's why I canceled. I find more value having the money back in my pocket or spending it on something else. Get really clear on why they left. Because if you know why they left, then you know when you should reach out to them so that they can come back. So for example, if somebody leaves because your technology is not reliable, like I had a client who did streaming content and they weren't, the streaming wasn't working. Well, they fixed that and they sent a note out to everybody that said, hey, we've just invested $1 gajillion in our streaming. It's completely 100% reliable. Come join us again, right? Or if they used up all your content, they've watched all your videos, they've done all your trainings, invite them back and say, hey, we have new trainings. So really understanding, or if they said, I'm overwhelmed, say, do you have time for another bout of, going deep? Give us a try again. So those are the ways to reach out to them. The other thing that you can do is make it easy for them to leave when they want to leave and make it easy for them to come back when they want to come back. So the concept of a pause button is very, very popular right now, as opposed to forcing someone to cancel, getting rid of all of their data, forgetting who they are, and then if they ever want to come back, they have the same hurdles as any new subscriber. That's not what you want.
No, that makes perfect sense. One thing I absolutely love doing, and you can't do with everyone who leaves an organization or your subscription, but exit interviews. Even
Yes.
if you have like even an email list, right, and you have a couple hundred people leaving an email list on a monthly basis, randomly sample a few of them. Just okay, you're probably going to have to send another email, but it's not automated. It's like a private email. Andrew to Robbie. Hey, Robbie,
Mm-hmm.
why did you choose to leave Wild Apricot's newsletter? Can I buy you a cup of coffee digitally? I'll literally send you a Starbucks gift card for 20 bucks. Give me 20 minutes of your time. I just want to understand what's going on.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful because then you really know. You really
Yeah,
understand. It's almost okay, pro tip, it's almost never the cost. It's
yeah,
almost always the value. It's not, oh, your $20 a month was too much. You're like, really, you didn't have $20 in your account? No, I have the $20. I just would rather spend it on something else. So yeah, that's so great that you take the time to do those exit interviews. It's got to be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, no, it is one of the best things I've done in my career as a marketer, and I strongly recommend everyone tries to have at least one or two. Um, well, it depends on like what your the amount of people you have leaving, but I try and do it every couple months just to try and figure out what I'm seeing from a marketing perspective. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. I could talk about this topic all the you know
Mhm.
ad nauseum, but we're gonna get to Pete's question. So Pete is curious about subscription pricing. So specifically for very small organizations. So what can Pete do as a small organization around his pricing for a subscription? My guess here is he thinks that as a small organization they can't charge a lot, but maybe I'm incorrect on that.
Okay, so first of all, it doesn't matter how big your organization is. It matters how much value you provide to your members. And you could be a very small, like I've seen some very small organizations. I mean, imagine an organization that supports 9 CEOs of Fortune 50 companies, right? 9 members. That's a very small organization. Each of those Fortune 50 CEOs might spend, I mean, Marshall Goldsmith gets $200,000 for a 6-month engagement with each of his CEO clients, right? So you don't have to be big to charge a lot if there's a lot of value there. So be confident about that and just focus on getting to know your best customers. Be really deliberate and selective about who you serve, and then go really deep on providing them great value. And once that works, if you want to grow in any direction, whether you want to grow by selling them more value or finding new people to provide value to expanding your range, you'll have a very sound foundation.
That is a great answer, and I love it. Be confident. Don't think just because you're small you can't charge a lot, as long as the value's there. So that's great, Robbie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, okay, well we are 3:53. I want to make sure we have enough time to kind of close things out properly. So that's going to be it for the question and answer period. Everyone, thank you for the amazing questions. Really appreciate it. And of course, thank you, Robbie. Thank you for being here. I learned a lot. I have stuff that now I have to put into practice, so that's great, and some podcasts to catch up on. So uh, it was a great learning experience for me. I hope you had a good time. And how about I give you the floor? Tell the audience what they need to know as we kind of wrap this up for today.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. Anybody, if I didn't get to your question, if you link in with me and drop your question, and I'm happy to do that, or if you send it to Andrew and Andrew sends it to me, I'm happy to do it that way too. Um, and I hope we can stay connected. And I wish you all the best on your journey to, a true membership mindset. It's a both a lucrative approach and one that brings a lot of personal meaning and satisfaction, I think, to the people that live by those ideas.
Awesome. Thanks, Robbie. I see our team, Allie, who's been taking care of everyone's questions, just dropped a link to your audience page, which I think is, am I remembering correctly, that's the goodie page where you have all sorts of
Yep.
great free stuff that people can get. So
Yep.
what can they get there?
They can get chapter 8 of my book, the Forever Transaction, which is all about the culture of a forever transaction kind of business. They can get my membership manifesto, which explains how this works and why it's so powerful, and they get some process visuals, so some images that kind of explain the ideas that we've been discussing today.
Awesome. That's great. And we also put a link to your podcast. So if everyone, or for the people out there who are podcast fanatics like me, who constantly have like their earbuds in whenever they're working, go check that out as well. Great. So that is it, Robbie. Thank you so much again. Really appreciated everything. And to the audience, thank you for being here. I want to give a shout out on October 8th. We're going to have Kirsten Hewer here to discuss what your organization can do to ensure it's reaching the right audience. So I think that will actually probably fit really well with some of the stuff we talked about
Yeah,
today.
I'll check it out.
Awesome. So final thing, I just want to let everyone know, we started the show at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. We're still dealing with that, so we still have a ton of stuff out there for people who are trying to navigate their organization through this difficult period. So check out wildapricot.com/COVID-19. You can check out all of our resources there. There's a ton of great value that you can, or a ton of great information there that is of high value, I think, to running a really good organization right now. including our research report on virtual events. So if you're thinking about running a virtual event, big, small, doesn't matter. We have a survey of over 1,000 people and what they were doing to create really, really good events. So a lot of learning there for you. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, audience. Cannot wait to see everyone next time on Targeted Impact. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.